I'm John Strum, and this is Real Talk MS. It's February 11th, and we have a lot to talk about. As if dealing with the very real symptoms of MS isn't enough, living with MS can also mean learning to overcome the stigma of having a disability, successfully navigating social relationships, and learning how to ask for and accept help. Joining me today to share their experiences in overcoming some of these social obstacles are Denise Schnieders, who was diagnosed with MS just about a year ago, and Fox Rigney, who's been living with MS since 2012. But before we get to my conversation with Denise and Fox, there are a few other things that you should know about. I want to give a shout out to my friends at EMD Serono, the healthcare business of Merck KGaA Darmstadt, Germany in the United States and Canada. EMD Serono launched their Embracing Carers initiative in 2017. As just one part of that initiative, I was fortunate to have my story as my wife's caregiver included in the award-winning documentary they produced titled Seeing MS from the Inside Out. I've seen EMD Serono demonstrate their commitment to MS caregivers by continually stepping up and providing support to projects designed to support MS caregivers, like the MS Caregiver Conundrum limited podcast series I produced back in 2021, or the MS Care Partner Connection web portal that went live just last month. But the reason I wanted to talk about this company today is because they've adopted a new internal global policy that demonstrates how they not only talk the talk when it comes to supporting caregivers, they also walk the walk. Merck KGaA Darmstadt, Germany has announced a new caregiver leave benefit that allows employees to take financially protected time away from work to care for critically and terminally ill immediate family members. The policy applies to parents, children, and partners, and in the United States, that benefit translates to up to 7 weeks of paid leave. In addition to the added responsibility of caring for a loved one who's living with a chronic illness, family caregivers often experience the anxiety of trying to balance their caregiving responsibilities while holding down a job. At times it can be tricky. Benefits like caregiver leave acknowledge an employee's responsibilities to their loved ones at home while sending a clear message that they're also valued in their workplace. It's one thing to hear EMD Serono say that they're embracing carers. It's a whole different thing when we can actually watch them do it. Kudos. It's not unusual for someone living with MS to feel like over the course of a year, they aren't feeling as well, they aren't doing as well as they were just a year earlier. This often occurs even when that individual's MRI scan appears unchanged and their status is considered stable compared to a year ago. You may have already heard the term PIRA being used to describe this phenomenon. PIRA is an acronym for Progression Independent of Relapse Activity. But the question remains, what's at the root of that progression? Well, now an international research team may have discovered a clue. Their research involved 115 people with MS who received MRI exams at 3 different points in time, revealing between all the participants nearly 1,500 lesions. These lesions were tracked, and the researchers discovered that over time, T2-weighted hyperintense lesions were actually quite dynamic. So let's break down some of that jargon. An MRI scan can be taken in different formats. These are called sequences, and they're just like a filter in photography. T1 sequences show detailed anatomy of the brain and spinal cord. These T1 sequences are useful in identifying atrophy or shrinkage of previously damaged brain tissue. These areas, called black holes, can be called hypointense on the MRI report. T2 sequences are used to highlight areas of demyelination, which occurs when the outer layer of a nerve cell is damaged due to MS activity. T2 sequences can be used to count the total number of MS lesions, which appear as bright white spots on T2 sequences, and they can be called hyperintense. So, the results of this study, published just a couple of weeks ago, show that MS lesions can experience significant change over time, sometimes growing larger and sometimes growing smaller. But these changes occur outside of our ability to visually perceive them because of challenges that we all have in distinguishing subtle variations in the shades that appear in an MRI scan. Interestingly, more of these dynamic T2 lesions were found among study participants who were not receiving treatment for their MS, adding one more piece of evidence to make the case for staying on that disease-modifying therapy. So is this the unseen mechanism that's driving progression independent of relapse activity? It's probably too soon to tell, but this study demands that further attention should be paid to a biological mechanism that may have escaped observation until now. If you'd like to review the details of this study, you'll find a link in today's show notes. Repurposing a drug means finding a new medical use for an existing, already approved medication. As you might imagine, this significantly reduces the time, cost, and risk of developing a new drug because the safety profile of an existing drug is already well established. This allows researchers to focus on testing the drug's efficacy for a different disease with faster clinical trial timelines and lower development costs. Now, the challenge in this process is finding an efficient way to identify a drug that might be a candidate for repurposing. One way to make this process less challenging could be to use artificial intelligence. And that's exactly what global healthcare group Cosmos Health is doing with their AI-powered drug repurposing platform called CloudScreen. Using CloudScreen as their starting point, Cosmos Health has identified an already marketed drug that can potentially be repurposed for treating MS. Now, we don't know the name of this drug quite yet, as Cosmos has applied for a patent for a unique mechanism of action that their team has discovered. For quite a long time on this podcast, we've been talking about the ways that AI will have a profound impact on virtually every aspect of healthcare. CloudScreen and the discovery of a potential new treatment for MS are just two more examples of the AI revolution that you and I are living through. We'll keep you posted on this potential new treatment as Cosmos Health makes those details available. While we're on the subject of AI, a few months ago in episode number 355 of Real Talk MS, I told you about a new version of AlphaFold, an artificial intelligence application developed by Google's artificial intelligence company, DeepMind. The key to drug discovery and development is the interaction of proteins with other molecules. And a major bottleneck in drug development is physically producing biological designs that can test how well specific proteins and molecules bind together. Because AlphaFold has mapped the behavior of all of life's molecules, including human DNA, scientists can design a molecule that will bind to a specific place on a protein and then use AlphaFold to accurately predict how strongly it's going to bind, which reduces the time and money needed to develop potentially life-changing treatments. DeepMind also released a free online tool that scientists can use to test their hypotheses with just a few clicks of their mouse before running real-world tests. Since 2021, AlphaFold's AI predictions have been made freely accessible to researchers as part of a database containing more than 200 million protein structures. When I first told you about AlphaFold, I said that this latest version brings AI-driven drug development a major step closer. And a couple of weeks ago at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Nobel laureate and DeepMind CEO Denise Schnieders announced that he expects to see pharmaceutical drugs designed by artificial intelligence to be in clinical trials by the end of this year. Now, while this news isn't specifically about a drug for multiple sclerosis, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see one developed sooner rather than later, because DeepMind is focusing this initiative on neuroscience, using AI to help scientists understand specific functions that occur at the cellular level in the brain. Might this help researchers understand the specific cause or causes of MS? Might it help our understanding of MS progression in the absence of relapse activity? Could it uncover that specific mechanism that's causing the hidden persistent inflammation in MS? Right now, the best answer I can offer is maybe. But as I say that, what I hope you're hearing in the background is the sound of real scientific progress. New and better treatments for MS can't happen without clinical trials. And clinical trials don't happen without participants. So as they cross my screen, I'll be sharing opportunities for you to participate in clinical trials. And today I want to tell you about a phase 2 clinical trial called Moonstone that's recruiting adults between the ages of 18 and 60 with relapsing remitting MS or active secondary progressive MS. Enrollment is currently taking place at 43 sites across the United States, Europe, and China. This clinical trial will be investigating the efficacy of an experimental therapy called obexelimab, delivered by a weekly subcutaneous or under-the-skin injection. B cells are immune cells that have been shown to play a key role in MS inflammation. Several disease-modifying therapies, including Ocrevus, Briumvi, and Kesimpta, are designed to deplete B cells by targeting a specific protein called CD20. Obexelimab is designed to reduce the activity of B cells without depleting them by targeting two different B cell proteins. According to Zenas Biopharma, the manufacturer of obexelimab, this treatment is expected to reduce the activity of a broader range of B cells than the currently available treatments that target that CD20 protein. In addition to MS, obexelimab is also undergoing clinical trials as a potential treatment for several other autoimmune diseases. To qualify as a participant in this trial, you need to have been diagnosed with relapsing remitting or active secondary progressive MS. You need to have experienced one relapse in the preceding year or two relapses in the preceding 2 years. Or you need to have at least one actively inflamed lesion detected by an MRI scan that was done up to 6 months before you enter the study. Results of this study are expected in the third quarter of this year. And if you'd like more information about participating, you can call area code 833-269-4696 in the United States, or email clinicaltrialsinfo@zenasbio.com, and you'll find that contact information in today's show notes. Research is the engine that drives progress, and progress can't happen without you. I hope you'll give serious consideration to participating in MS research. Besides disease-modifying therapies, living your best life with MS requires successfully navigating social situations. Stigma and the struggle to embrace support can combine to have a profound impact on your emotional well-being, your relationships, and your self-confidence. In a moment, Denise Schnieders and Fox Rigney will join the conversation to share their experiences in overcoming these kinds of social obstacles. As if dealing with the very real symptoms of MS isn't enough, living with MS can also mean living with the stigma of having a disability. It can mean adjusting how you interact in social settings, and it can mean learning how to ask for and accept help. Joining me today to share their experiences in overcoming some of these social obstacles are Denise Schnieders and Fox Rigney. Denise is a wife, mother, teacher, coach, business owner, and advocate who lives with MS. Fox has been a member of the MS Society's Michigan Government Relations Advisory Committee since 2020. He's also served as a Government Relations Advisory Committee District Activist Leader, Chair of the MS Society's West Michigan Community Engagement Committee, an MS Support Group Leader, and Chair of Corewell Health's Disability and Neurodiversity Business Resource Group. Beyond his multiple leadership roles, Fox produces Love Unearned, a podcast celebrating love and combating injustice, and he'll be featured in the upcoming MS-focused documentary, Because I Can. Denise, Fox, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us, John.
Yes, thank you.
Denise, when were you diagnosed, and what's been the most challenging part of adjusting to life with MS?
I was diagnosed March 12th of 2024, so less than a year ago. I am 2 days away from the first time I ever heard, I think you have MS. Those dates are just etched. And the most challenging parts, definitely learning how to rest, how to sit back and let my body do what it needs. I have pushed myself always. I was an athlete from the time I was walking and all the way through, and coaching still. And it's just a part of who I am, is to push and keep going. And I teach. So in my classroom, there is no downtime. We're working. My phrase here is, don't be a bump on a pickle. And I have had to learn how to be a bump on a pickle and be okay with it. That is actually something that my body craves and needs, is that rest. The time to reset is as much physical as it is mental too with MS. So just sitting back and letting my body recover from what it's doing to itself.
Fox, same question. When were you diagnosed? And what's been the most challenging part of adjusting to life with MS for you?
I was diagnosed in February of 2012. And like Denise was alluding to, those moments when the doctor says, hey, you have multiple sclerosis, that is one you can never shake. And in the long journey it has been since I was diagnosed, looking back to the beginning and to where I'm at now, amongst the biggest challenges for me was finding out how to not only ask for help, but even harder was to accept that help. I made sure, especially in the first 8 years or so, to get in my own way anytime I could, when involving somebody offering help. Oh no, I'm fine. I don't need that water. I don't need to rest. I can keep going forever. It's fine. Even when it very much was not fine. So in that arc, I've gotten much better at those kind of things, and I'm very thankful for it.
Denise, have you ever felt like you were experiencing stigma or judgment because of your MS? And if you have, what's helped you cope?
The stigma that I have felt was with my initial diagnosis, because I was very quick to just tell the people around me, this is what's going on. I'm going to need your support. But the initial reaction from almost everyone was, oh my gosh, you're going to have to quit teaching. You're not going to coach. You're going to stay home. And for somebody who is active and a doer and a go, that hurts so much. That's really what people thought, that I was just going to lay down and take it and just say no more. I have MS and that's it. That's all there is to me, and I'm finished. I've got nothing else to do or give. When I have a lot to do. I have a lot to give. So just that misconception, and I think that's the biggest part of it, is that people just don't know what MS is well enough to know that it isn't always going to mean you can't continue doing things you love. And it's going to look different.
Denise, how do you think we can reduce the stigma of living with a disability?
Increase awareness. People just need to know what the different disabilities are and what MS is. The number of people who don't have any idea what MS is astounding. I will be the first to admit that I didn't have any idea what it meant when he said, I think you have MS. Not a clue. It was one of those where I knew it wasn't good, but I didn't know all that it entailed. I didn't know that it wasn't going to be immediately debilitating. I had that misconception myself. So when others had it, even though it was hurtful to me, I understood it because there's just not enough knowledge. There's not enough awareness. You don't see it front and center in your TV shows, in sitcoms and things like that. We're not well represented in society as far as what people are looking at. Kids aren't reading about it in their books, the characters in their stories. It needs to be seen. And it's definitely something that I see as an area of importance for those of us who have it to address.
Agreed. Fox, you've lived with MS for more than a decade now. What have you found are some of the more common misconceptions about MS that people have?
Well, going back to Denise and just saying, not even understanding anything about it. If they have heard of it, that is great. But then that consistent, this is like, you're not going to be able to do anything, or you are, at this point, I live very loudly with multiple sclerosis. You don't meet me. I go out of my way. Even when I don't need my cane, if I'm in a public situation, I make sure to have it because I make sure I'm giving that signals to the world that, hey, there's a there. You might not know what it is, but that has helped me with kind of fighting any stigmas that might come my way because people know me. And if you don't know me, you can see me, and I am big, I am bright, I am who I am, and I'm coming at it, and you're not going to stop me. But just seeing the little things that are out there, you're going to be in a wheelchair. Oh, you're not going to be able to go take a road trip, whatever it may be. All of these stigmas, depending on the exposure somebody has, they just add up. They play against us.
There are the stigmas that you just mentioned that get projected upon us. Sometimes stigma lives in our own heads. I'm wondering, Fox, has having MS had any sort of impact on your confidence in social situations or in relationships you may have had?
Absolutely. Going out into the world and understanding my challenges, navigating the world in which is going to include social situations. It just plays against me. I have gotten in my own way many times, but one thing early on, that I had my own little mantra is, if I don't know where I am at my worst, I can never know where I am at my best. And, I kept thinking about that and putting myself in hard situations. But even now, even after really 15 plus years since diagnosis, I still get to think, okay, I have to drive an hour and a half. How am I going to be after that? How am I going to be with my friends? Am I really just going to get there and say, hey, I'm too tired. I don't have enough spoons. I want to turn around. And with those challenges, I have so many coping strategies I have to use. It's not easier after these years, even with my razor sharp coping strategies, but knowing makes you not hesitate to still get into the situations.
How about you, Denise? Have you found that having MS has had any kind of an impact on your self-confidence in social settings or in relationships?
So for me in social settings, it's funny, Fox, because I've taken the same bold, like, here I am. I don't use my cane everywhere I go, but that's not a bad idea. but I started dopamine dressing. So I dress in bold, bright colors. Like, you can't see it. I've got on like leopard pants and orange shoes. I stand out in a crowd. But it's one of those where, like, I feel like if I stand out, if I am very present, then I'm making it known that it doesn't have to be this, oh, poor Denise. It's, oh my gosh, look at her. She's killing it. Because we are, and it doesn't matter how we're doing it. If we're showing up, we're killing it. Let's be real. It's hard. And that's different for me, because I used to be the person who was like, let me in all black, let me hide in the back. No thanks. So I've really taken it to like be a challenge to myself that no, I want people to know that this is what it looks like. And just, I'm proud. I'm proud of myself. I show up, and I show up in a big way, and you're not going to miss me. Just like Fox, which I love. It was one of those, when I saw his headshot, I was like, yes, we're friends. Like, yeah. And not everybody's going to show up the same way. I think probably to have two people who show up like this together, what are the odds, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it's been the way that I can be just me. Like, and I wanted, like, because that was the most hurtful part, was like, they thought I can't. Well, watch me, and you're not going to miss me doing it.
Living with MS means learning to ask for and accept help. Asking for help or being offered help, well, that can be tricky. It can be hard to walk that fine line between preserving your independence and getting the support you might actually need. Fox, how do you keep that all in balance?
Some days you don't, although you absolutely try. In my journey with multiple sclerosis, I think in the beginning, I just made sure to get in my own way at any point in time that I could, time and time and time again. And I will say, the moment I said, that's it, that's enough, I have to stop this. People aren't asking if they can do something for me because they have some begrudging obligation to me to do this. They do it because they want to be a part, they want to be on my team. And if I don't put them on my team, they cannot be there. So to me, it was finally recognizing that I was doing a disservice to myself, but I was also doing a disservice to those that love, care, and support me. And I will say, the moment that I recognized that and I said, nope, we're gonna change things, it was like a light switch. World got much easier, much better. I wasn't just running myself ragged constantly. I was understanding that when I put up boundaries, it wasn't to say I don't want to be around you. I just know that engaging in whatever way that you're asking me to engage is going to have consequences, whether that be what I'm able to do later or even tomorrow or the next couple days. Does it sound fun? Do I want to be around you? Do I want to engage in whatever you ask me to? Yes, I absolutely do. But you're going to understand. People do. They get it. And part of that is handled with communication. It is a very complex situation to be in as you're calculating how to navigate situations and people and relationships, but it is one that you learn how to champion and be very successful with over time.
Denise, how do you preserve your sense of independence while asking for or accepting help?
So for me, like, the help that I've gotten, I didn't seek. It's most prevalent in our business. My husband and the people who are in like the thick of it with us, they were involved, but they weren't really doing the business side of things. They just said, look, you can't be your best self if you run yourself the way you do. And I would go from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. every night, 6 days a week minimum. And they just said, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to support you. And if you need less help, you want to do more, tell us. If if you want more help, tell us. They just dove in, and they know me, and I know that their intentions are so good and so pure. And it has allowed me to be a better wife, mom, friend, coach, teacher, all the things. And for me, I've always come back to assuming the best of intentions of people. And, in my classroom and as a coach, when we talk and there's any type of issue, do you think they intended to hurt your feelings? It's where we always start. So I always start with, what do I think their intentions were? And 90% of the time, it's their intentions were great. They're wanting to help me. If I don't need the help, that's when it can be tricky, because it's like, okay, I want to do that myself. And then saying, jump in if I look like I'm sinking, please save me. But that requires so much trust. And again, like Fox said, having the right people on your team, knowing that those people have your best interest at heart. And sometimes that's hard, because that means you have to separate yourself from the negative and remove people from your life that you normally wouldn't have, because you can, without MS, without a chronic illness, you can get through life with negative people, because you have, you're going to ebb and flow with your relationships. With a chronic illness, the negative people, they drain you. So you just have to eliminate that. And that's hard. It's a hard thing to decide to do, but once you do, and you keep those people who are well-intentioned in your life, who are there to support you, what you're able to give those people back is so much greater than any hit to your ego that it might feel like initially. It's so much greater.
Well, Denise Schnieders, Fox Rigney, thank you for sharing your stories and some excellent insights with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate you, John.
That's going to wrap up this episode of Real Talk MS. Real Talk MS is powered by the National MS Society. And you can share this episode of the podcast by letting your friends or family members know that all they have to do is point their web browser at realtalkms.com/389. You'll find that link in today's show notes, so you can easily copy and paste it right into an email or a text. And if you have a minute, I hope you'll visit the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Real Talk MS app for your iOS or Android smartphone or tablet. It's the best way for us to stay connected. The app will automatically download the latest episode of Real Talk MS. You'll be able to access any of our past episodes. You'll be able to save your favorite episodes. And it's a great way for me to share bonus content with you. The app is free, so I hope you'll download it today. I'm John Strum. Thanks for listening. Stay safe and make healthy choices.